Anyway, welcome to the State Department. I think we have some interns in the back. Welcome. Good to see you in this exercise in transparency and democracy.
Is that what it is?
Sorry,
I thought
I didn't mean to break
it was an exercise in spin and obfuscation.
Allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control the highways and seaports. 109.95 allows the government to seize and control the communications media. 109.97 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. 109.98 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, or vehicles of any kind. 109.99 allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Executive Order 11,000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. 11,001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. 11,002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. 11,003 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. 11,004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, and designate areas to be abandoned. 11,005 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. 11,921 gives the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency the authority to take over all banking institutions in the United States. As we've just seen, there are laws on the books that make it perfectly legal for the United States government to suspend citizens' rights. However, if we look to the founding documents for guidance, we'll find that it's not our government that bestows these rights upon us in the first place. According to the founders, all of our rights are unalienable. So what does that mean? According to Webster's dictionary, the definition of unalienable is not capable of being transferred to another, or in layman's terms, non-negotiable, not to be forfeited, or birthright. How much plainer can it possibly be? Our founding documents tell us that these rights cannot be transferred or taken away by anyone, not by any person, not by any government. So if the government passes laws that violate the Constitution, how can they enforce those bad laws? It's very simple. We let them do it.
Is that you could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up in a kind of ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
We've 18 reported tornadoes in 3 states overnight and more than 100 severe weather reports.
Overnight, twister after twister taking aim at the heartland. Now, you can see this massive funnel cloud making its way across that field. In Oklahoma, this reported tornado touching down. And check out the ominous Kansas sky overnight, lightning revealing numerous funnel cloud.
Okay, so how, again, I interrupted you slightly there. How does it work? How many planes are we talking about here? How do you do this?
So let's say you wanted to stop it warming in 2020. You'd start with a fleet of just 2 or 3 kind of modified business jets. You'd put, say, 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year, and each year you have to put a little more, and this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in
No,
emissions.
we'll get to it eventually, yeah.
But it
In the
does...
meantime, we're shrouding the earth in sulfuric acid.
Most of Oklahoma under a state of emergency tonight. High wind and severe drought are creating blowtorch conditions. At least 1 person has died. More than 200,000 acres have burned. 1,400 people have been forced from their homes.
The largest fire burning is the Ray Fire in Dewey County. That fire is 28 miles long and 7 miles wide.
Western Oklahoma is on fire. A state of emergency declared in more than 50 counties. The smoky smell detected in neighboring states.
The wind's horrible. The only thing that we've had is cooler temperatures, and that hasn't affected the fire conditions at all.
The reprieve will be short-lived. Temperatures are forecast to soar into the 90s this week, potentially whipping up Oklahoma's already deadly wildfire.
Blanketing the earth in sulfuric acid, because I'm all for it. This is the all-chocolate dinner. I still get to have my CO2, and I just need to spray sulfuric acid
Right?
all over the earth.
Right question. But we put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now. Kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, and that's
so
good or bad?
It's terrible.
But it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that, a tiny fraction of that. So we should reduce that sulfuric acid.
So if it kills 1 million people, and we're
It's
only
bad.
doing 1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math,
Okay.
but that's so killing people is not the objective here.
Killing people, not the objective. I
Objective-
just wanted to be
objective is
clear. I just wanted to be clear. All right.
Red tide discovered in the waters off two popular Collier County beaches. The latest round of testing uncovered the high levels of the harmful algae near Barefoot and Vanderbilt beaches.
It's causing dead fish to wash ashore, many still littering the sand there.
Well, the deadly effect of red tide on fish is still very present out here on Vanderbilt Beach. They are all over the place, but it's not just fish taking a hit tonight. A wildlife veterinarian tells me that there are birds eating these fish that are impacted by red tide and then getting sick. Red tide is back with a vengeance at Collier County beaches.
This is definitely the longest one I've ever remembered.
The last tests from Thursday found high levels of red tide in the water near Barefoot and Vanderbilt beaches. Tests conducted earlier in the week found almost no sign of the harmful algae.
It seems that it's been fairly consistent for months now.
Joanna Fitzgerald is a wildlife veterinarian. She says all of these birds here almost died after eating fish contaminated with red tide toxins.
They come in and they can't even blink. It's a full body paresis, so they can't move.
And I'll read you the quote because it's an important one, and it comes from the Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, and it was at a DoD news briefing, April 27th, 1997. It was on a conference on international terrorism, terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. Now, this is 4 years before 9/11, and this was in the DoD news briefing that followed. And what he said, and I quote, "Others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter climates, set off earthquakes and volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves," unquote. Now, that's a powerful statement for a seated Secretary of Defense to make.
The Ring of Fire has sparked earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
Volcano in southwestern Japan has erupted after 250 years of silence. And meteorological agency officials are telling people to stay away from Mount Yoyama.
The eruption of a volcano on Hawaii's largest island has forced the evacuation of 1,700 residents.
A witness described the flowing magma as a curtain of fire. Another said the eruption sounded like a jet engine.
I ran in, I grabbed the dogs, threw them in a crate, put them in the car. We moved from California to get away from forest fires. Welcome to paradise.
In Hawaii, over 450 earthquakes in 24 hours and spewing lava. Volcanic eruptions spewing molten rock, ash, and toxic gases onto Hawaii's Big Island. The eruption stemming from a series of cracks in Hua'o'o's rift zone, miles from the Kilauea volcano. Video from earlier this week shows walls of smoke billowing as the vent on Hua'o'o collapses, leaving behind a red, rocky surface similar to that of Mars, with gaping holes giving us a glimpse of the orange liquid magma smoldering below.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. On the geopolitical side, The technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations.
Been following a story in Girard about some loud booms that some people believe are explosions in the city.
A neighbor last night told us it's been going on for years in the neighborhood just off Route 422 on Emma Street and also on Morris Avenue.
For years now, people in Girard right around I-80 say they hear and feel explosions, but the one they felt Wednesday took it to another level.
It sounded like a big bomb going off. The floor actually shook. I was laying on the couch, and it shook. The roof felt like it was going to come down on us.
Some of her neighbors have cracks in their foundations, crumbling exteriors, and they're wondering if it might be related. Superior Auto Body's right on the corner of Emma Street and 422, and Jared Latone says it happens on average a couple times a week.
It's kind of now just, oh, there's another one. Or it happened again. We don't know what it is. We can guess and say we think it's the gas tanks from the cars across the street, but we really don't know.
So, at least for now, the mystery continues, leaving a whole neighborhood on shaky ground.
Can you just do it for part of the planet?
Pretty much the whole planet.
No, but could you? Could you just just make things better for the United States?
Very hard to do. It seems that this is mostly global. But the big fear is that one country will want it one way and one the other, like two frat boys arguing over the thermostat. And in many ways, the biggest fear here, well, we have no idea how to actually agree about how to control the planet's thermostat.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down.
Okay.
But as I said, it rains down.
Okay.
It's a tiny addition of what we're already doing.
So in the end, pollution saved them all. We owe pollution, we owe acid rain an apology, is what you're saying.
A totally imperfect technical fix.
Okay.
It would have risks. It wouldn't get us out of the long-run need to stop polluting, but it might actually save people and be useful.
You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes are the contrails. Maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now, and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
Seems extremely unlikely.
That the United States is not telling something to its citizens? That seems extremely likely to me.
And lawful standards for those who fall into this category. We must have a thorough process of periodic review so that any prolonged detention is carefully evaluated and justified. Our goal is to construct a legitimate legal framework for the remaining Guantanamo detainees that cannot be transferred. Our goal is not to avoid a legitimate legal framework. In our constitutional system, prolonged detention should not be the decision of any one man. If and when we determine that the United States must hold individuals to keep them from carrying out an act of war, we will do so within a system that involves judicial and congressional oversight. And so going forward, my administration will work with Congress to develop an appropriate legal regime so that our efforts are consistent with our values and our Constitution.
You'll construct a legal regime to make indefinite detention legal. You will, what does he say? Develop an appropriate legal regime. So you can construct a whole new system outside the courts, even outside the military commissions, so that you can indefinitely imprison people without charges. And you'll build that system from scratch. What's that somebody said about ad hoc legal strategies? Just for context here, in the United Kingdom, where there isn't even a Bill of Rights, there's been a major debate about whether people can be held in preventive detention. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair wanted 3 months to be the outer limit for how long anyone could be held. There was a big political fight about it. Parliament ended up limiting that power to 28 days. 28 days is still the longest period of preventive detention that's allowed under law in any comparable democracy anywhere in the world. How long would President Obama's proposed preventive indefinite detention last? Well, he's not saying yet, but here's how he defines the threat that he says makes indefinite detention necessary.
Right now in distant training camps and in crowded cities, there are people plotting to take American lives. That will be the case a year from now, 5 years from now, and in all probability 10 years from now.
10 years from now. So you could get arrested today and locked up without a trial, without being convicted, without being sentenced for, say, 10 years until the threat of your future criminal behavior passes. Prolonged detention, he's calling it. This was a beautiful speech from President Obama today with patriotic, moving, even poetic language about the rule of law and the Constitution. And
Bonanza will be shown after a special report from NBC News. I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
For the first time in history, the dollar was just a piece of paper, backed only by faith in the Federal Reserve and its policies. Over the next decade, the cost of living more than doubled. The dollar lost more than half its value.
So, what's going on here? Why does the Constitution clearly state that our money shall be coined, yet we are using government-issued, supposedly official, paper dollar bills? And we can't even redeem these for silver any longer. And why does Thomas Jefferson, the very man who drafted the Declaration of Independence and co-authored the U.S. Constitution, warn us about banks and corporations? Something is off here.
The notion of a central bank does not fit into the Constitution. The Congress has the authority to coin money, and only gold and silver should be legal tender. And this is an absolute contradiction of the Constitution to have a Federal Reserve System and a central bank.
Do you feel that our paper currency should still be backed by gold or silver?
I'm not really sure what you mean. Like change the color of our money or something, or?
It was designed for the elite, and even today a lot of people don't quite understand
the Federal
that.
Reserve System, to most people, seems like it is a agency of the federal government. That's what I thought it was when I first started to research this topic. But it turns out that it's nothing of the kind. The Federal Reserve is a hybrid organization. It's a partnership between the federal government and the private banks. When you look at it deeper than that, its essence is neither as a government agency or a private company. In reality, it is a cartel. In other words, it's no different in essence than a banana cartel or a sugar cartel or an oil cartel. It's a grouping of the large private corporations in the field, banking, who have come together to create agreement between themselves to limit competition, to preserve their profits, and to make sure that no newcomers come in and take away their position. That's what cartels are always designed to do. And it's a shocking thing to realize that something as prestigious as the Federal Reserve System, at its core, is nothing more or less than a banking cartel with exactly those same objectives.
We have a statute that doesn't square with the Constitution. It's void. It is not a law, in fact. So the question then arises, well, how does that square with the oath of office of representatives, senators, judges? And the answer is it doesn't. That when they come face to face with a statute that is contradiction of the Constitution, they are to treat the Constitution as the supreme law and treat that statute as void. So that's number one. Here we have a system, Federal Reserve System, that has all of these constitutional problems, and everyone is essentially looking in the opposite direction. So that doesn't square with the oath of office. And one would think that the president, being the head of the executive department, in which we find the Treasury, Department of Treasury, which interacts quite closely with the Federal Reserve, might have something direct to say about that. And then, of course, the president has a specific constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. So you would expect, on top of all of this, that he would be saying, wait a minute, if the Constitution doesn't square with the Federal Reserve Act in one or more ways, then I should be giving directives to the Secretary of the Treasury to take certain kinds of action to deal with that. And, of course, we see exactly the opposite.
don't think it's good policy for the president or a president-elect to second-guess the Fed, which is an independent body.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
What the relationships are don't frankly matter. The Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
Today's paper currency, far from the gold and silver coinage stipulated by the founders, is essentially created out of thin air.
Most people are alarmed when they hear about the fact that the Fed can create money out of nothing and charge interest on it, so they don't have the money to repay the loan. So what do? Easy. Borrow some more. So this process goes on and on and on, and that's why we have the national debt growing and growing and growing. But we have to pay more for a bag of groceries today than we did 5 years ago. It comes out of our pocket. It comes out of our earning capacity. That is value which we should have, but it's been taken from us through a process that we call inflation, but in reality it's a hidden tax. Inflation is the result of being able to create money out of nothing, and that is the power we have given to the Federal Reserve System.
Looking at this chart, it doesn't take a genius to see where we are headed. And when this system crashes and burns, from the ashes will emerge the New World Order. This has been the plan all along. Set up a system, get us to be dependent on it, then by the time it inevitably fails, they will present the solution, the final solution. Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new order for the ages.
Where this graph is headed is for total destruction of our monetary system. Our money will be totally worthless, and it'll probably be reissued in the form of some international currency, which will be equally worthless. But the value to these people is that once it's on an international basis, there's nowhere else to go. Right now, if you don't like American dollars, you can buy Japanese yen. If you don't like that, you can buy Swiss francs. If you don't like that, you can move to whatever currency seems to be having a little better track record. Once there's an international monetary system in place, modeled completely and exactly after the Federal Reserve System is exactly the same, then there's no place else to go, folks.
The New World Order is exactly what it says. A single order for the entire world to live under. One authority to answer to. A one world police force, a unified world military, and one kind of currency for everyone. They even want to implement a one-world religion. Just do a quick search for the United Religions Initiative, which states that it's a global grassroots interfaith network that cultivates peace and justice by engaging people to bridge religious and cultural differences and work together for the good of their communities and the world. And that's the thing. They make it sound good. Peace, justice, unity, community improvement. What's not to like? Well, they don't tell you the rest of the story. They fail to mention the part about a worldwide conspiracy being orchestrated by an extremely powerful and influential group of genetically related individuals, at least at the highest echelons, which include many of the world's wealthiest people, top political leaders, powerful Jews, and corporate elite, as well as members of secret societies, including Freemasons, and the so-called black nobility of Europe, dominated by the British Crown, whose goal is to create a one-world government, stripped of nationalistic and regional boundaries, that is obedient to their agenda. Their intention is to obtain complete and total control over every human being on Earth and to dramatically reduce the world's population, while regulating and managing reproduction thereafter.
Folks, there is a new world order that's being created.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we we have a real chance at this new world order. It is a big idea. A new world order. Such is a world worthy of our children's future. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us. About the prospects for a new world order now within our reach. I'll be talking in some detail about the possibility of a new world order, the quest for the new world order. New world order. The new world order really is a tool for addressing a new world of possibilities.
The President, George Bush, has talked time and time again about a new world order. So this phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
A new world order, a defining moment in history. New world order, new world order, new world order. Was that a new world order? True new world order. Build a new world order, new world order.
I've told you before, because I love it so much, they also created the Great Seal of the United States. And that Great Seal of the United States has on it, Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
Creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
What it really is putting the American economy under international regulation.
Yeah.
And those people who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
Conspiracy theorists.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Those conspiracy people had said and suggested that for years. You're not wrong.
International regulation of the financial institutions, which is going to happen under the IMF control.
Now, I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government. The combining of national governments started with the European Union. That union started with trade agreements, then a common currency, the euro, and now a European Parliament that is feverishly passing laws that override the laws of the member nations. A constitution was drafted but rejected by a few of those nations, but never mind. They implemented it anyway. Now it's North America's turn. Building on the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA section of the Commerce Department is busy drafting laws and regulations for a North American Union, a union of Canada, America, and Mexico. The President has attended secret meetings and signed at least 2 agreements under the Security and Prosperity Partnership Program.
Today we must develop federal structures on a global level to deal with world problems. We need a system of enforceable world law, a democratic federal world government.
On the outskirts of the national capital today, black limousines with darkened windows converged on a hotel where private security guards imposed ironclad control. The limos carried royalty, political power brokers, and industrial titans to a secret meeting that will last all weekend. It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
It is impossible not to reach the conclusion that the non-reporting of these events is anything other than a conspiracy between the organizers and the media. It merely confirms the belief of many that the hidden agenda and purpose of the Bilderberg Group is to bring about undemocratic world government. It's a disgrace that the European Commission is colluding in that.
CFR members include America's wealthiest tycoons, as well as the highly placed elite in government, academic institutions, tax-exempt foundations, and the establishment media. Ruling Class Journalists, written by Richard Harwood, describes the CFR membership as the ruling establishment in the United States. The Washington Post article boasted that news reporters who are CFR members do not merely analyze and interpret foreign policy for the United States, they help make it. Who are these policymakers? Many of their faces are familiar.
NBC's Tom Brokaw, CBS's Dan Rather, ABC's Barbara Walters, Jim Lehrer of PBS, William F. Buckley of National Review, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, owner of the giant multifaceted News Corporation. These media heavyweights, and many others like them, are members of the CFR. Powerful corporations are also invited to become members. At the close of the 20th century, CFR influence presided over far-reaching consolidations of media control. In 1995, CFR members Michael Eisner of Disney and ABC's Thomas Murphy merged their media empires. Soon after the merger, the Disney-ABC empire becomes a CFR corporate member. In the year 2000, the world's largest internet service provider, America Online, joins forces with Time Warner, one of the world's largest news organizations. The CEOs favoring the move are CNN's Thomas Johnson and Time Warner's Gerald Levin, both CFR members. Once again, another media giant is created under the shadow of CFR influence. Today, an elite handful of individuals define the agendas that are supported by the empire of establishment.
I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in. To kind of catapult the propaganda.
By the CIA, who are contributing to a major circulation American journal. We do have people who submit pieces to two American journals.
Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network?
The great Oz has spoken.
Take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
You have to see it for yourself.
Let's put it this way. Money trumps peace sometimes.
We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
Paid by the CIA, who are working for television networks. This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.